So last week we started talking about finding relief in life and things that we oftentimes go to from drugs to this and that and the other thing. We talked about specifically last week. We talked about people, trying to find relief in people, and we talked about the way that people are a temporary but a necessary commodity in your life. It's something that we cannot make our life problem-free or all that stuff just by having friends. But God did definitely equip us and create us to be a community. It's funny that I still hear people telling other people, you need to, they'll be counseling other Christians and they'll telling them, well, you need to, not be dependent on others, which I understand what they're kind of trying to say, but what they're actually saying is you don't need the church. And it's like, but that's not true though. They do need to be dependent on, we do need to be dependent on each other. So that right there is the problem. You don't need to be dependent on others for you seeking after God. That's true, but that's not what I usually hear. Usually it's around you just need to do you and all this stuff. And it's like, well, but we weren't created to be just islands floating out there. And then the last thing I talked about last week was meditation. I just walked you through a real quick process of how you could implement meditation into your life to help you focus onto Scripture. I walked you through the process of first clearing your thoughts by doing the counting with the breaths and then going into adding Scripture to it so you can kind of stop thinking about the thing you're thinking on, and then you can start thinking about Scripture. That's a really easy process you can do. I found that no matter how upset you are, that following that little breathing exercise that I walked you through will always help you to kind of just tune back in, especially if you just kind of feel off your game when you're going into prayer. That's why I oftentimes will do meditation over prayer, because with prayer, I will go and I'll just gripe and complain to God because my mind won't be where it should be, and so it's kind of turns into this thing where I'm just talking. It's like I'm venting. And there's nothing wrong with like talk therapy, for instance. That's what counselors are for. But prayer should be a little bit more than that. And so I use meditation sometimes more so that I can stop my thinking and start thinking more about what is God trying to say. And when you meditate, you're just sitting there thinking about what the Scripture says. It's a lot easier to think about what God's trying to tell you because it's not you doing the talking, it's you doing the listening. And I'm not saying prayer is bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I like to do meditation before I do prayer, because if I don't, I just sit there griping for a half an hour. So anyways, sometimes in life, we just have these expectations that are just off. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. If I do what's right, then everything will be fine. And we go through life thinking these different ideas, and it just life kind of has a way of bringing by situations that kind of correct those mistakes, and we see them as great unfairnesses, because when they shake us, when they shake us awake, we think, oh man, that's so unfair that it doesn't work like I've always been told how it works. And so we kind of go through this pout with God. And that's what I found a lot of finding relief in life is about. We face disappointments because we had expectations that we were holding God to, and God failed those expectations because we don't hold God to expectations. Just because that's how you thought the world worked doesn't mean that God has to be like, oh, it's a contract now. I signed on the dotted line. If you guys ever saw the cartoon The Little Mermaid, where the king of the ocean, he was held to the deal. And so, it's not like that. I mean, you can think whatever you want, but God isn't like held to some standard because of that. And so a lot of this comes down to a simple question. We all struggle in difficult times, but the majority of the times we struggle with a very hard question: is God really that good? Whenever we go into these hard times, it's the first thing that pops into our head. We go through it, and we're at first, we've got that natural resilience to us where we can just power through on our own. We don't really need God's input. We'll be fine. Like something bad will happen and you can shake it off. Like, oh, I got cut off on the road. You don't really need God's divine intervention for that. You can just kind of work it through. But in life, it has this way of doing this kind of like, I don't know, just like you guys ever played video games where you're doing the fighting, the one-on-one fighting, like at the arcades, and if you hit them enough times in a row, you get like the attack bonuses, like the 3 times score and 4 times score. Do what? The combos, combo, and And so that's kind of how life works. And so all these bad things and the combo break us. And it's one of those things we can't really adapt to overly well. And so eventually we get to the point of where we are no longer strong enough. We run out of our strength. And then we get to the place of, well, God, now I'm going to ask the question, are you really that good? Because I'm not in control anymore. I can't get through just on my own charisma anymore. What's going on? And so because we're no longer in control of the situation, we try to find relief. And it takes us to that question, God, are you really that good? I mean, it seems like you're not. But here's the good news about all this. When we doubt and when we fail to trust God, and even when we get angry at him, check this out, he is still faithful. His faithfulness is not based on how good you are and how well you are handling the trial. That to me is a great relief. I know many times when I've, been in the middle of something, I think, you stuck with me through the whole thing, even when I didn't deserve it. See, because in my mind, there was a period of time when I did deserve it, and then I messed up, so then I no longer deserved it. But then God was faithful through the whole process, even when I doubted him, even when I, was angry at him. See, and the whole time God's like, you never deserved my goodness, homie. Let me just set you straight. I got your back anyway, though. So we feel confident until something or some things bad happens. And then we say, well, why isn't God doing anything? Is he good? Why isn't he doing something? And oftentimes God is doing things. We just don't really see how it works out. What we fail to understand is our inability to understand how God is working doesn't mean that God isn't working. Two completely different things. There's a lot of things in science that I study, and I think, why did God do it like that? I don't see, but just because I don't see doesn't mean that God didn't do it like that, So things happen, and time goes on, and we still hurt. And so time goes on some more, and we still hurt, and we just kind of, it's fine. I'll just power through, but the hurt's still there. And so we just keep plowing through, playing through. The funny thing is, when people end up going to counseling, it's usually when they've had a problem that's been ignored for so long. Our minds have great ways of dealing with temporary pain. Like, for instance, something will happen and you push it to the back of your mind and you don't think about it. That works at first. But when it's like 5 or 10 years of pushing it to the back, it doesn't work so good. And so then by the time that people get to that stage and they finally go to the counselor has to help them, kind of deal with the crap that they've been pushing off to the side for years. And it's once again, I think that applies here. We go through things and we keep getting hurt and we just not dealing with it. And one area that this happens with is unanswered prayers. You pray something when you're a kid, God doesn't answer. And you think, okay, well, that hurts. And you carry that little hurt for the rest of your life of how God betrayed you, how God let you down, and not really understanding it, but it's so sensitive and so owie in your boo-boo heart that you can't really take the time to think it through, because every time you think about it, it just kind of scratches it. And you're just like, I don't really want that uncomfortable feeling. And so we have this little kernel of not trusting God because he let us down by not answering our prayers. And so we try to act spiritual like it's not really there, but it is really there. And so we still have this little kernel of like this little bit of trust issues with God. And one way you can just test your heart really quick, it's a 5-second test. Do you, when you go into a situation, let me ask it differently. If right now God told you to pack up everything, sell everything you have, and move to another state, it can be the state that you hate the most. Just pick one, it doesn't matter. And are you going to feel fear going there? Yes. Why? Because that little kernel of, when I was here, I prayed, God didn't answer me. Now I'm going to go there and I'm going to have to figure it all out on my own, because I've had to figure it all out on my own here. Little kernel of, I don't really trust you the whole way, God. I'll trust you. Did 70%? You're going to have to come the other way. You know what I mean? If you guys have ever seen, never mind, I'll reference that some other time. So does God really care? Does God really hear? Is God really that good? And I think over the different things that I've gone through, and I've noticed that it affects my faith. And let me come back to that, okay? Let's look at Isaiah chapter 43. We closed on this last week. I want to just repeat it a little bit. This is what God says Do not fear, you are mine. Okay, what's the basis of this? Well, I created you, I formed you, I redeemed you, I called you by name. So this is what God has to say. What is it, God? What is the big thing that you have to say? You're mine. Do not fear. Another way that God could say this is, the Lord is my shepherd. He's my guide. He's the one who carries me through life. He is in everything that I'm going through. He might not cause everything that I'm going through, but he is with me in everything that I'm going through. He is guiding me through it, even when I don't see it. That's another way you could say that exact same thought. Do not fear, you are mine. What we think is this, though. Okay, I get that you're mine, but what if you do something that I get that I'm yours, but what if you do something with the me that is not really what I'm wanting to happen? Like, for instance, what if I die? What if I get sick? What if I go through a very uncomfortable situation? See what I mean? We have these like kind of what ifs. I'm going to trust you, but there's that kernel there, God, of those disappointments that we've gone through together that I looked over. I looked over your failures, God. I let them go. But I am still a little bit holding on to that grudge. And so we just kind of hold on to it, and we think that we're so spiritual and God can somehow, right? Like he can't really see, or maybe, well, he needs to just be okay with it because I was the bigger person. I let it go. And all the while, God's trying to lead us through situations that are very trying to get at that kernel of that not trusting God, because in the back of our minds we're thinking, okay, God, but what if I get that? Don't fear, because you're mine. That means you're guiding me through the process. What if the process is taking me on a journey that I don't want to go on? Let me just interject here. Worrying about it's not going to change anything. If God has set in his mind to take you on a way, there's nothing you're going to do about it. That's where you're going. Sometimes in some things, God will give you the choice on, like, hey, you can be stubborn and pig-headed about this if you want. But then there's other things that he's like, oh, no. This was not a question. This is like, I hit the caps lock and I typed it out. Like, this is not going away. And so then we get to this, which is a part of the story that is very uncomfortable. When you pass through the waters, you mean I'll be passing through waters? I will be with you. Dang it. I want you to be with me, but I don't want the whole passing through waters thing. Is there some way that I can get the peace and comfort without having the situation that needs the peace and comfort? Could that be a thing? And the rivers will not overwhelm you. Well, I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. When you walk through the fire, I have to walk through fire too? I feel like on Aladdin. You guys remember on Aladdin when the guy takes off his shoes and he's walking through the hot coals? I feel like just like that. It's like, but hold on. Why don't you just put out the coals and I'll put it on? It'll be a miracle and everybody will praise you. That's how I think about things, right? Like, here's this thing, then you say you got to go through that. And I think, but you could just speak the word and it could be undone. And then meanwhile, God has his own reason for why he's doing what he's doing. But it's just like, but God, that's not the easiest way. And it's a scary. And you could do a real big showy miracle. And I'd be happier with that, I think. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched and the flame will not burn you. This doesn't mean that we will not die. Okay? You will one day die. He's just simply saying that throughout the process, he'll be with you. I know many Christians who have died as martyrs for the sake of Christ, that this promise still applied to them too. Okay, so let's keep things in perspective. Death is not the end. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, and your Savior. Okay. God is the only one who can save us from death. Not just from dying. That's not what I said. I said from death. As in, you are dying. You are currently in the process of dying, and it doesn't stop there. God's acts of redemption carry through past the grave. God's the only one who can do that. So I think over all the different things I've gone through in life, and I've noticed that the really hard struggles, they affect my faith. They make me think, God, I'm having a hard time trusting you in this situation because the situation is bad. Have you ever been in that situation? You're going through something bad and you say, God, I'm having a hard time trusting you in this situation. It would be a lot easier and my faith would be a lot stronger if you wouldn't have brought me into this situation. But here's a funny little thing. I would strongly argue that it's that situation that makes your faith real. How can you possibly trust God if you're not going through the fires or being in the waters and all this unpleasantness here in the middle part there? How can you possibly, how is that going to happen? So it's just a big idea here. Your struggles are what makes your faith real. And the times when it feels like your faith in God is just dying to despair, it's just a puddle of filth and disgusting. You have nothing to bring to God. You're ashamed of how weak you are. Those are the times when your faith is actually faith, because you have to choose to trust past what everything in your mind and your emotions and your body is screaming at you. That's difficult. But failure isn't not being perfect. That's not failure. Failure is refusing God. You're going to struggle. That's not a failure. You're going to have times when maybe even you do kind of go your ways from God. And in that moment, it definitely seems like a failure. But God has this way of looking at the long game. And he has this way of making even your biggest failures, your greatest rebellions, work in such a way where he uses it. Now, in our temporaries, because we live in time, you know that? In a minute, I'll be 1 minute older. Well, God doesn't exist in time. He exists outside of time. So he sees a whole picture. So while something's happening, he's like, okay, well, they're going to do this thing that's not great. It's probably pretty stupid, yeah. But, then I'm going to use it over here, and then I'm going to use it over here. So we look at it as the end of the road, or while we really messed up. And God looks at it as, I am using this. Think over your past stupidities. And look at them, and genuinely look at them, and see how God had his way of showing you that he was with you the whole time. So 1 Peter 4:12 says, "Dear friends, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you are going through as if something strange were happening to you." Oh, these things are going to happen. This life isn't perfect. So I would strongly encourage you, instead of praying that nothing bad would happen, I talked about this last week. God, heal me that I wouldn't have colitis anymore. I would love that. Hey, and make it where Chuck's kidneys work 100% again. He doesn't have to go to dialysis again. I mean, I think we both like that, right? Those would be great. Big, showy miracles. Those are the things we like. We don't like the day-to-day, God is bringing me through. We don't like that having to trust in God through the process bit. We like the thing where he can do something so he can get out of our lives and we can live our lives. But God likes it where we have to trust in him in the day-to-day with the little discomforts, the bad days. If you have chronic pain, you know what I'm talking about. You just wake up some days and it's just a bad day. You have to deal with it and you have to get through it. And you can't just step out or pause game or something like that. It's not fun. But God uses those unfun times as a way of guiding us and helping us to trust and depend on him. So instead of praying that nothing bad would ever happen, instead pray for wisdom. Pray for comfort. Pray for help. Pray for faith. See what I mean? A lot of times when we go to God in prayer, we ask him for things to try and make this a perfect utopia so that I'll be more comfortable. God, my kids are doing something stupid. I pray that you'd intervene and force them to do the right thing that I want them to do so that I'll feel better about it. That's a lot easier to pray than this. Lord, help me to trust you while my kids are doing these stupid things. That's a lot harder. That means I have to trust God in the middle of something that I'm not happy with, and then trust that God is also working in them and that I'm not in control and then getting my hands off of it. That's hard. That's hard. We don't like praying like that. We like praying in such a way where the world everything would be perfectly fine all the time, and this can be our utopia. But those prayers, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. It's like, for instance, somebody gets, this just happened. I can think of many times that this happened. One of my friends will pray for somebody who's, 80 or 90 and has cancer. Their body's kind of going into shutdown, and praying for them to get healed. And then the majority of the time they die, and then they lose faith in God because somebody who has already lived a full, healthy life died. I hate to tell you, but none of us are getting through this thing alive. I mean, if you want to go skydiving, you go right for it. You're going to die in the end anyways. I kid. So we are looking at 3 areas that we in life try to find relief. The first last week was people. We try to find people to fill the hole. Some of us live for family, for instance. What we're going to talk about tonight is situations. We try and find relief by having the perfect situation. We try to control life to such a degree that we can be in the perfect situation. And if an unfair or unpleasant situation comes by, we try to just get rid of it. We try and have perfection in life. We try to have control over everything in life and try to prevent something bad from happening, which is a funny thing because that's what we're going to talk about next, Romans 8:28. When something bad happens in our life, right? Something bad happened to you maybe when you were a kid. If you were ever a kid, you'll know that bad things happen. That was a joke. If you were ever a kid, I said, yeah. Okay, all right, just making sure we're on this. Okay, guys, that's fine. I'll just move on, and I don't need your laughter anyways. Yeah. I thank God I'm not a stand-up comedian, or I'd really be heartbroken and be like, God, I shouldn't have quit my day job. Anyways, so something happens to us in our past, something bad that we have a hard time coping with, and it causes a lot of distress, and it's something that will always affect everything that we do in life, no matter whether we get over it or not. When some examples of traumatic things that counselors often talk about with people, abuse as a child, parents getting divorced, let's see some other big things, losing a house, getting made fun of at school. These are things that have a huge impact in a child's development and stays with them for the rest of their life. And whatever it is, we have a hard time dealing with it, and it will always affect our life. But the question is, how greatly? If it turns into bitterness, it'll affect every single relationship afterwards. If it turns into a pity party, you'll probably always have problems asserting yourself and that kind of stuff. If it has, see what I mean? Whatever happens, there's this way that it kind of just follows us as we grow up into adults. And we always have to watch out because we can never have a perfect pain-free existence, correct? And we can never be perfect. Well, we want to be normal, right? Why can't God heal me so that I can have a normal existence like someone else? But the truth is that nobody has a normal existence. The people who are physically well are mentally ill. The ones who are mentally ill are emotionally. You get what I'm saying? There's always going to be somebody who's struggling with something from their past. Now, I'm not trying to oversimplify the issue, and I would strongly say this: do what you got to do to get through it. You need to go to counseling? Fine, go to counseling. If you need to read a couple books, whatever, work through it. But this is something that we can stick with us, a way that God works through us, through it in us, as we deal with the things that we've gone through that we haven't dealt with. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. What that tells me that although God doesn't cause everything to happen, and it isn't his will that people do the wrong thing, he gives meaning to the chaotic things that happen to us. So roll with me on this. If he gives meaning to the chaotic things that happens to us, that means this. That means that whatever happened, God works it to good. Well, this thing happened to me when I was a kid. It's not fair. I've never gotten over it. You should get over it. You should do whatever's necessary for you to get over it. And while you're getting over it, remember this promise that God has the ability to take that ugly thing that happened to you as a kid and work it for the good. I can't possibly deal with this, God. I can't possibly ever forgive the father. I can't ever possibly get over this hurt. Whatever. Here's the thing. You need to work through it. Absolutely. Your development is essential. But as you work through it, God has a way of making that work out for the good. God has a way of giving your story purpose, of making it meaningful. We can be at peace with our past because God works. God works, so I can be at peace with my past. See, what we do is we go to this thing and we look at it with jaded eyes because it hurts. So we look at, oh God, why did you let this happen? Why did you let my dad rape me? Why did you let my parents get a divorce? Why did you let those kids be mean to me at school? Or whatever. I mean, whatever you've gone through. And we take this and we take it and it turns into bitterness towards God. Not realizing that if we work through it, we can remember the promise that God will take that situation and he will bring peace. And he will help us to be at peace with our past as he grows character in us, because God is working through all things. Some translations say we know that all things work together. That's not an accurate translation. It's we know that God is working in all things. Okay, so just so that we're all clear there. It's not just magically working together. God has a way of taking those things that you would rather forget and making something worthwhile out of it. This is one of the ways that the Old Testament passage, God brings beauty from ashes. This is one of the way that applies. You've got ashes in your past, something that you struggle with to this day. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's something from your childhood. I don't know. It's none of my business probably. But God is having a way as He works through you to give meaning to that thing, and He's working through it. So, okay, that's my past. What about the rest of it? Well, thankfully, God didn't just give us that one verse, which is a good thing. Although you wouldn't know it from some of those daily devotional things. It's like that verse makes in every single one of them. And I don't know. I feel like maybe they should read the rest of the Bible too. Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? If you're anything like me, you oftentimes get overwhelmed with the things that are going on around you. You just kind of sometimes maybe even just find a safe place, right? Somewhere I can just bury my head in the sand and just have peace and quiet just for a second. And we all call it something different. Some of us, we call it, I need my own little private island. Some of us call it a safe place. Some of us call it a place without kids. Well, anyways, a bachelor pad, that's what we call it. But, we all call it something different. But at the end of the day, it's the same idea. Somewhere where we can just get away from it all. A fishing trip, maybe, for some of us. Man. And the best thing about fishing trips is you don't have to take anybody with you. So when you say, I caught a fish, yay big, they can say, really? And you can say, yeah, man, I would show it to you, but I ate it. And I would show you a picture, but as I was really getting my camera, fell into the water. So it happens, But what we do is we sit there and we worry about the different things that we're going through. But the thing is, worrying doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the outcome. It doesn't change what you're dealing with. It doesn't change how the situation is going to play out. Worrying does nothing. I literally have to stop myself and say, I am wasting my time and my energy and my effort. God gave me the ability to think, and it would have been better for the last 30 minutes if I hadn't had the ability to think. Do you never find yourself in this situation? Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Look, I'm sorry that you have to go through the crap in life, but we all have to go through crap in life, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the good news is that God gives us promises along with the crap. That's the good news. Psalm 48:14 says, for that is what God is like. He is our God forever and ever, and He will guide us until we die. That doesn't mean that once it's time for us to die, He's just going to okay, see ya. That means that we can know that when we get to that situation, God will bring us through that situation. What if this happens? I don't know. But I know that when we get to whatever happens, I know that God will get us through whatever happens. That's the difference. He has been with us all of our lives, even when we didn't see it. When the time comes and not before, He'll be with us then. See, some of us worry about death, right? What is it going to be like to die? I'm scared about it. Well, don't think about it. It's not time yet. When you get there, I'm sure God will, give you peace in that moment. But now it's not really the time. Don't worry about dying when you're living. How about that? And so we think of, I'm scared of what if this happens? We all have this choice in life. We have to believe or not. You have to choose to believe or not. Fear is going to come in your life. Nothing you can do about that. But you have to choose to believe or not to believe. That's your choice. With colitis, you actually have times when you feel like you're having an intense anxiety attack, and it's actually just your gut. Our gut is hardwired to our brain. So when you're having symptoms here, it sometimes tells you symptoms here that you're not actually having. So then I have anxiety, plus I have my gut anxiety. So, this is something that, I could take medication if I want, but it's not going to do anything. That's just an unfortunate reality of my life. That's something where when you get to it, it's like, well, this is just what you got to do. The feeling is going to come whether you like it or not. You just got to choose to believe or not. So sometimes we panic and get our eyes on the waves of life. Sometimes we don't take care of the problem, like going to the doctor, like, something that wasn't a big deal, and then we're scared to go to the doctor, so we make up some story about how I'm standing in faith. It's like, but did God tell you that he was going to heal you? Well, no, but I kind of wanted him to say that, and then somebody said something that I vaguely mistranslated to mean that. So yeah, God's going to help me. It's going to be fine. Don't ever have to go to the scary doctor. Boy, I wish that would have worked for me before the colonoscopy. Anyways, so we put something off that was small, and it's fine, it'll go away. Like if you guys remember, those of you who have known me for long enough, back in 2013, I got sick, and it's the flu, it'll go away. 2 weeks pass, it's fine, it's gonna go away. 4 weeks pass, it's fine, I said, it's gonna just go away. And then hospitalized and almost on death, and like, how are you not dead? And well, I was standing on faith, doctor. And all the while, it would have been a simple fix if I would have just gone at the beginning of the process. You see what I mean? So sometimes we panic and get our eyes on the waves. Sometimes we don't take care of the problem. Sometimes we think that we shouldn't feel fear. Oh, I'm less spiritual because I feel fear. Okay, whatever. None of that really, that's just something you have to deal with on your own, I guess. But it's definitely not that nothing bad will happen, but that God will be with us. I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories. One is a guy named Gideon. This dude just kind of hanging out like in a field, and there's these people that are kind of like his whole nation's enemies. Think of them as the Texans, okay? So there's the Texans. I'm joking. So here he is just chilling out, and these people come, and he's hiding out, and the angel's like, "Oh, you are so mighty, you're awesome." And the guy's like, "Me?" He's like, "Yeah, you. Come on, I got something big for you to do." He's like, "Me?" He's like, "Yeah, you. Come on." He's like, "Okay, well, I'm not gonna really believe, even though I'm seeing an angel with my own eyes. So I'm going to put something on the ground. You make it wet and then make the whole ground dry." And the angel's like, "Okay, but I'm an angel." And he's like, "That's not good enough. I mean, I have faith, but I'm not going to be crazy here." So then the next day it happens like you went, "Okay, now hold on. Don't get too happy, angel. I'm not done yet. Hold on. Hold your horses. This time I want you to make the ground wet and my little thing dry." And okay, fine. Well, you're kind of wasting time. I mean, I got to go answer Daniel's prayer request. This is why he was 21 days late. Anyways, and so so then he does this. And so he goes and he rallies up the armies, and they get to fight the big enemy. And he's like, God, I'm scared. I can't do it. And he says, "Okay, fine. Holding your hand the whole way, Gideon. But okay, let's go down to the camp." So he goes down to the camp, and the guys are talking. They're like, "Oh man, I'm scared to deal with this. They've got this guy named Gideon, and I had this dream about this rock smashing us all to bits, and that's Gideon." And so they're all scared. And he's like, "Okay, this is pretty awesome." So Gideon goes back up. And he's like, "Okay, guys, round up the troops. Let's do something with candles and a pot. Nobody's gonna know what we're talking about anyways. And then we're gonna blow a trumpet. It's gonna be fine." So they do that, and the enemies all kill themselves. Gideon doesn't even have to have a sword for the whole process. So there's some things where God's going to do it like Gideon. There's some people that are just like Gideon. God's just going to take care of it all. You don't really have to do anything. God just does it. But then not everybody's a Gideon. Others are like Moses. If you don't know anything about Moses, this is a guy that, things never really went easy for Moses. It was always hard for Moses. So he was living in the palace, and he's like, "I'm having too good of a life. I don't want to get spoiled here. So I'm going to go for a walk," because people who are rich, they do things that they don't really need to do, like go jogging. And so Moses goes out, and, he's like, "Oh, that homie's getting beat, so I'm going to kill this dude." And so then, the Pharaohs are like, "Well, not in my kingdom." So he runs out to the desert. He's like, "Fine, I'm just going to pout for the next 40 years. And so he does. And then a burning bush tells him, "Hey, no, this is fun, but it's been 40 years. Get back on the horse and go on back." He's like, "I don't think you really mean that." And God's like, "No, I really think I didn't, but you could send Aaron. He's a lot probably better, smarter than me, I'm, probably not the greatest." And he's like, "No, I said go." And he's like, "But God, why don't you just send somebody else?" And now God kind of gets mad at him. He's like, "I said go." Have you ever told your kid to do something and they're just like sitting there giving you the back and forth? It's like, just go do it. Well, that's kind of what Moses is experiencing with God. So he goes grudgingly, "I guess I'll go." And so he gets back to Egypt, and everything goes wrong. He tries telling the people, "Hey, God's going to save us." It just gets worse. So then, he keeps trying to do his thing. He wants to give up. And Pharaoh keeps refusing God, and so he keeps doing these miracles, and bad things keep happening to Pharaoh and to Egypt. And, just a long, drawn-out process. And so finally, they can leave. But not even that's easy. They get to the Red Sea, and they're like, Moses, I don't know what you scored in geography back at Palace School, but this is a giant body of water, and I can't fly. And so Moses is like, what do I do, God? And God's like, just be quiet for 5 seconds. Jeez. So he spreads the water. He's like, okay, go. So they go. And then the end of the problem. No. Then they have trial after test in the desert. And finally, after the end of all this, Moses gets so irritated. He's like, you know what? Fine. I'll break this rock myself. And he smacks the rock, and water comes out, and God says, okay, fine. You're not going to the promised land. It's like, dang it. And so that's Moses' life. Some people have it like Gideon. God just works it all out. Other people have it like Moses, where you have nothing but problems. I don't know why. Just kind of the way that it goes. But here's the point I want you to get from that. God was with both of them. Moses had nothing but discomfort and struggles and trials and pain in the butt people in the desert, which must have been hot. And if you've ever been out that long without a shower, you know that the sand kind of starts to really itch and chafe. I have. Let me tell you, it starts to itch and chafe. That probably wasn't the greatest, but God was with him. But then there's Gideon, who didn't even have to pull his sword, and all of his enemies just dropped dead. Wouldn't you like that? Just see the people you hate just drop dead. But Moses didn't get to see that. But still, God was with both of them. God was with both of them. Oftentimes, the problem is our heart and our mindset. God owes me. God, I have been a faithful servant to you. You owe me a good outcome. Why can't I have their struggle? Why do I have to deal with this? Why do I have to go through this at all? But someone always has it worse than you. And don't forget that. I sometimes am tempted to really start griping and complaining to God. But all my kids to this day are healthy. And even if one of them does get sick, at least God gave me the years that he did with no problems. See what I mean? It could always be worse. And now somebody said, uh-oh. So God doesn't owe us. It is definitely normal to struggle with the questions when you're going through these trials and unfair situations in life. And the thing is, if you spend your whole life trying to find relief by going through perfect situations, and every single time that you're in a situation you don't like, trying to make it where it's good again, you will waste your entire life trying to make it a perfect situation. It's not going to happen. And if you possibly can, which chances are if you put your finger in it, it'll just make it worse. But let's just say that you can make it better. Eventually, something bad's going to happen anyways. So you're going to waste all your efforts. But don't be surprised that problems come. And grow through the problems. But I have some good news for the midst of all this gloom and doom and despair that I've taken you guys through. You don't have to do someone else's best. You do the best you can and trust God the best you can. You don't have to do someone else's best. But Chuck's handling his kidney failure so good. Lucky for me, God never told me to be Chuck. He told me to be me. Okay? You don't have to do someone else's best. That's the first little bit of good news. Do what you can today. There's a second bit of good news. Oftentimes people, for instance, with chronic pain issues, well, I can't get up today. I can't go out today. Okay, do what you can. That's difficult. But there are some other good newses that I didn't get. Good news, everyone. You never have to do today again. You get through today and it'll be all okay. You did it. You never have to do today again. And here's another little bit of good news. God didn't tell you to do tomorrow. God, I don't think I can handle this tomorrow. I don't think I can carry it tomorrow. I think that this is I just can't. I can't. Good news. He never told you to. He told you to do today. If God intended for you to live with tomorrow's weight today, he would have put you in tomorrow. But he didn't. Here you are today. Just focus on today. I really wanted to run from the doctor, and I prayed it through, but God said he wouldn't heal me instantly. God is healing me through doctors and medicine. I'd rather he didn't, but that's the way he's doing it. Okay. Hey, you didn't really ask my opinion. You know how you have follow-ups with your doctor? God doesn't give you a follow-up. So it's been, so long since this has started happening. How do you feel? Do you think I'm handling it okay? Can you rate my performance? And God doesn't give us any of those. So I just wanted to run from the doctor and hope for the best. But surprise, surprise, you can't run too well from the doctor with colitis. That's a joke. If you had colitis, you'd get it. So you're going to face moments of discomfort. When I went in for my colonoscopy, for instance, I was scared to death. I didn't know what I had. I had to face a moment of discomfort to face the rest of life with more comfort. Let me explain what I mean, okay? I had to go through the panic attack of a colonoscopy so that I didn't have to be afraid of, what do I have? Am I dying? Is it going to go away? See, now I don't have to live with that fear. I had to face a temporary fear for the sake of a greater fear. And sometimes we try to live so guarded in life that we end up shooting ourselves in the foot. I know we want all of our situations to just resolve themselves, but they're not going to. They're not just going to go away, okay? Some of them will, obviously, but you can't just run from your problems and expect things to change. So how does this apply? I was listening to a song, and it just, I know the song. I've known it for years. It just still always hits me. Lord, I don't know where this is going or how it all works out. I don't know. But lead me to peace, a peace that's beyond my understanding. I don't want something that makes sense. I want something that's beyond my ability to conjure up a meaning. I want something that is beyond me, something that's not just me ignoring a problem and hoping that it goes away, something that's bigger than that. So no matter what the problem is, in our heads, we will always make it worse. Always make it worse than it is every single time. It doesn't matter what you're going through up here, it's going to make it worse. You're going to play it to death until it's worse, okay? And then you're going to play it to death of how you're going to respond, but when you're actually in that situation, you're not going to respond like that anyways. Don't look for the perfect situation, because it's not going to happen. Your happiness cannot be dependent on nothing ever going wrong, or you will never be happy. I would be happy, but I'm going through the situation right now. Well, better get used to not being happy. God gives peace, but not as the world gives. The world gives us peace that's instant and distracting, right? We don't have to work for it. It doesn't really mean anything. It's not really a peace that's lasting. It doesn't get into our loins. It's just something that kind of... It's like the difference of watching the rain from your patio versus swimming in the lake while it's raining. You gotta make a difference. God's peace is not like the peace of the world. It's just not. And that means there's a lot more legwork of trusting God and praying through the process. And there's going to be some sleepless nights. There's going to be some times when you're scared to freaking death. There's going to be some times when you don't think that this is ever going to get any better. But God has a way of working through those destroying, scary situations to make something else. Remember Romans 28. God is working through it. I don't want you to work through this, God. I just want you to make it go away. The real issue is, what are we focused on? This gets harder with some things than others, like when you have health concerns, right? If you wake up every single day and your eye is bleeding, it's going to be like, oh, this is very scary. It's going to be hard to pay attention to anything else. I mean, my eye is bleeding. But if you have something that's just like, oh, this situation is irritating, you can distract yourself sometimes. So it gets more hard with some situations than others. So other people, they just don't care. Like their arm will fall off and they'll be like, it's fine. Totally okay with this. But then that same person, you tell them, hey, your kid just stubbed their toe, and they're like, what? Flipping over towels, are they okay? Get them to the doctor. Everybody has their own struggle. And so it gets harder for some people and for some situations than others. But the main issue is always where we are focused on. Okay, so don't look for perfect situations. Change what your focus is on. Don't focus on your storm. Focus on Jesus. The storm will always be there. So will Jesus. Double whammy. Focusing on the storm won't help. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? Well, Yeah, it definitely could. But don't worry, in your head, you'll always make things worse than they are. So instead, here's a little exercise you can do at home. Every time that you feel overwhelmed with the bad things in your life, you just can't focus. You're just in despair. Okay. First off, remember that that's just a feeling. Okay, feelings are temporary, and they don't always reflect truth. I feel this, I feel that. Okay, that's okay. It's your right to feel. Feelings don't define what is fact. Okay, so I feel overwhelmed. You've made it this far, you'll get it through. Really, God got you through all this stuff in the past. This is no different. You feel overwhelmed. That's a feeling. It'll pass. But second to that, every time you are overwhelmed, do this instead. List 3 good things. List 3 good things. 3 things that you're thankful for. So your mind is focused on all these bad things. Stop thinking about that. Instead, list 3 good things. When you're having a panic attack, for instance, they tell you to do this. They say, list 3 things that you can see. Okay, I can see a black wall. You see what I mean? 3 things that you can feel. And it kind of gets your mind to focus on something else. It's the same basic idea, but when you're overwhelmed with worry and stress and think about things that aren't good and true and honest and all those good things, list 3 good things. So what if this happens? What if my kids die and go to hell? What if all this bad stuff? What if I have cancer? What if list 3 things you're thankful for? See, you can't change all the other stuff. If you do have cancer, worrying about it's not going to fix anything. If your kids are going to die and go to hell, worrying about it isn't going to do anything about it anyways. Instead, you can change your focus. See what I mean? Trust God to do what God does, and you have to let go of the things that you are not in control of, even if you really, really care. So a lot of it is managing. I talked last week about meditation. Sorry about that. Yes, I am. Evidently, though, just a little word of it. Cocaine is not going to help you with anxiety. Okay, one thing you can do is go for walks. Go for walks and appreciate what you have. Sometimes we get so upset about what could happen or what is happening, we forget what we do have. God, I have colitis, but my fingers, they feel great. I mean, I can still play the guitar. And you might think that I'm joking, but I'm not. I mean, this bad thing, so that means I can't be thankful about anything else. Well, no, that's not really how it works. So your issues won't disappear, but you don't have to be miserable. Learn to manage your thinking. And I hope that helps. Next week, we'll look at the third thing that we try to find relief in. So last week was people. Tonight was the situation. So, Lord, we thank you for being with us through all this, because we know that the situation will never bring us relief. There will always be something to worry about, something to stress about if we let ourselves. So, God, I pray you'd help us to refocus our thinking on you and to let you be all of our vision instead of all these things that we can't control anyways. Lord, I pray that as we seek you and as we get our eyes off of the situation onto you, you would replace that misery that we work ourselves into with joy and peace, a peace that is beyond our understanding, even though we have no idea what's happening or why. We love you, Lord. Amen.